face, everybody. We are here with another video in our Jedi training series. So the last time we went over some ways that you can improve at Star Wars Unlimited or card games in general, and steps that you can take. And one of the last steps was Jedi test number 5, which was seeing the future. And so we want to talk about kind of making plays or making decisions when you're thinking about what's going to happen next, what's going to happen later in the game. Not just making decisions kind of in the moment, but the ability to kind of, like chess players do, see moves into the future. So today we're going to talk about mulligans and resourcing, go over some kind of concepts and principles, and then we've got some clips of those principles in action. So in order to talk about mulligans, we've got to do a little bit of math. And I know nobody likes math. I shouldn't say that. Some people like math, and bless those people. I'm not one of them. But if you're going to be good at cards, you got to find some people that are good at math, because it comes into play. And one of the ways it comes into play is figuring out what your percentages are for taking a mulligan. How often are you able to get a turn 1 play if you need to? So overall, the base number for having a turn 1 play, if you have 9 turn 1 plays in your deck, is about 92%. That includes your opening draw and your mulligan. And so if you go up higher, obviously the number is going to go up. You might have 12 turn 1 plays, then you're going to get closer to 97%, right? So being able to recognize, what your percentages are at allows you to mulligan more aggressively if you need to, or know when you need to be more conservative. So a deck like Sabine, which plays a lot of 1-drops, they can look at a hand and comfortably mulligan it, knowing that they have a high chance to get a turn 1 playback. Whereas a deck that maybe is a little more on the top end of the curve, a little more late game, they might have to look at a hand and say, well, it's not a great hand, but it's got a turn 1 play. I think I better keep it just in case. Another thing that you can think about is how important it is in the matchup you're playing to have an optimal start. So in a matchup where you're favored, you can play a little more conservative, right? You don't need the absolute best hand. You just need a good hand. You're favored in the matchup. Most of the time you're going to win. When you're unfavored, that flips. You need the best hand possible. And so then you might have to get a little more aggressive or a little riskier with your mulligans. And we're not just thinking about turn 1 here, but how does the game play out? So what are you playing on turn 1? What are you playing on turn 2? And then the future. And how likely are you to draw cards that you need for the later turns, right? And then the last thing when you're considering whether you should take a mulligan or not is thinking about the cards that you are resourcing. How badly are you going to need those cards later in the game? So a hand where you have playable turn 1, playable turn 2, but you need to resource 2 top-end cards, might be a bad idea depending on the matchup, right? Let's say you're playing one of the popular decks from the most recent sector was Yoda Data Vault, and it had a lot of great top-end like Bo-Katan and Home One and Luke. If you're playing against another deck that can go deep into games, like a blue-green villain deck, you might not want to keep a hand where you're resourcing a couple of your bombs early, because those are going to be the cards that are going to decide the game. So that's something to think about when, those are some things to think about when you're thinking about the mulligan. The other thing you want to have an idea of is, what does your perfect hand look like? What are you looking for? And this is going to depend on your deck, and it's also going to depend a little bit on the matchup. sometimes a lot in the matchup, but maybe you're a deck that just wants to curve out like an Anakin Data Vault. You want a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. Maybe you're a deck that you have some key cards, whether it's for the matchup or just how your deck functions. So you might want a couple early plays, and then you might want to hang on to those key cards. So like a Wrecker and Sabine, right? Maybe you're a deck that really, really wants to get some ramp going, like a Kira Data Vault or a Boba Data Vault or Han 1 green. So you're just looking for ramp in your opening hand, and that's pretty much it. Or maybe you're more of a control deck and you're an Iden, you just need some removal. If you don't have a turn one play, that's fine, as long as you have, a couple removal cards in your hand to kind of get you started at the beginning of the game. A couple other factors that you can consider kind of matchup based is, do you need to mulligan for cards to answer your opponents, or can you just play your own game plan? So are you going to be the aggressive deck, or are you going to be the reactive deck in this matchup? And that can change from time to time. Yeah, a deck like Sabine, which is used to being the aggressive deck, might have to play a little more reactive if they come up against an aggro deck that can burn them out quicker than they can. And then the last thing that you need to think about is, can my opponent disrupt me at all? So here we're looking at turn one plays like Spark Rebellion or Bazine, which can discard cards from your hand. If you're playing against those color pairings, a yellow hero or yellow villain, and they have the initiative, a hand with a single turn one play isn't going to be good enough. For what if they play that card, they take your turn one play, now you've missed your turn. Depending on the matchup, that may or may not be the end of the world, but it's certainly something to consider. So, with those principles in mind, we are going to look at some examples and play a little game called Keep or Mull. And we are going to start by looking at a game from the Galactic Championships. We're looking at Ian Lego Pizza Klein playing Kylo Tarkentown. And you can't see it there, they haven't pulled it up yet, but from my investigative skills, I can tell you that he is sitting on a hand of Force Lightning, Perilous Position, Long Pike, Power of the Dark Side, the Secretive Sage, and Witch of the Mist. So, with that in mind, what do you think? Would you keep this hand or take a mulligan? If you need a little more time, go ahead and pause the video. If you've made up your mind, let's see what he does. When I saw this and I looked at the cards, I thought, hey, that's a good hand. Let's keep it. Obviously, Ian is a much better player than I am, and he knows his deck very well. He knows he can do better. So I was thinking, well, he's got one card to put down that's a smuggle card. That's great. He's got some removal. He's got some early plays. Why would you mulligan that? Ian here is probably, I'm guessing, looking at the matchup and thinking, Sabine's an aggressive deck. I'm a low health base with a 7-drop leader. I need to be careful in this matchup. I need a really good hand. And that hand just isn't good enough. He's thinking he wants like Witch of the Mist plus Force Throw, or Migs plus an upgrade to cycle. And the other thing that he's probably thinking of is that his deck plays a lot of early game. So he's got lots of turn one plays, he's got lots of early interaction. He knows that he can mulligan aggressively, and he's gonna draw into a playable hand most of the time. So he mulligans his hand away, and off he goes. So the next clip here that we're looking at is Tim Grease, T85 Challenge. This is at the sectors in Munich, and we are late in the rounds here. I think this is the end of before the cut, or maybe just in the cut, I can't remember. Anyway, Tim opens up a hand here, and he has 2 resupplies, a Spark of Hope, 1 resupply carrier, a home 1, and a Battlefield Marine. So, would you keep this hand or take a mulligan? If you made up your mind, great. If you need some more time, go ahead and pause. We'll play the clip here. And we can see that Tim is going to keep this hand. One thing that you'll notice is that he does not have a turn 3 play right now. He can play Battlefield Marine turn 1, resupply turn 2, but then after that he's going to need to draw into something. I think here this is illustrating the principle of kind of keeping your best cards as long as you have a couple early plays. Resupply Carrier is certainly one of the best cards in his deck because it can get him to that Yoda flip kind of as a surprise a turn earlier, so especially when he's double ramping here. And just allow him to stabilize that much earlier, and then he's going to follow that up with home 1. So that's fantastic, and he's got a turn 1 play and a turn 2 play. He's confident he's going to draw something to play in between. The other principle that this hand is illustrating is that he is resourcing cards that he absolutely does not want later. He's resourcing a resupply and a Spark of Hope. Those are not going to do him any good as top decks later in the game, and he doesn't have to put any of his kind of power cards into his row. So it's a great hand for him to keep. All right, and our last example here. We are looking at a Ram playing Talzin Red into Quinlan Tarkentown, and you can see there on the right-hand side, Aram has an Anakin, a Fallen Lightsaber, a Jedi in Hiding, a Long Pike, a Night Sister Warrior, and a Talzin's Assassin. So, what do you think? Should he keep or maul? And if you need some time, go ahead and pause. We're going to see here, he is keeping this hand. So looking at this hand, it looks pretty strong. You've got turn 1 play, turn 2 play, turn 3 play. You've got a Saber that can go on Talzin. You've got an Anakin you can keep for later if you want, and a Smuggle card. It looks like a hand with everything you could ask for. The one thing I think that needs to be taken into account, and I'm not faulting Aram for this. This is round 7 of Galactic's Day 2. Round 8. Sorry. So maybe he played all day yesterday, and this is the end of a long day. You know, whether it was a mistake or not, everybody, it's going to happen to everybody. But we can see here how this plays out. The Night Sister Warrior is just not a strong enough turn 1 play against a Quinlan Tarkentown deck. He needs either the Sage, which can stop the Ping Tarkentown, or a Karis as his turn 1 play to kind of not get run over immediately by Quinlan's turn 1 play. So these are two decks that are very, very board control focused. They're both kind of tempo-y decks. They want to take control of the board early and then start swinging away at the enemy base. And so while his hand looks strong, as you watch the game play out, Quinlan just gets that easy kill right off the hop, taking him out, and then the Jedi in Hiding and the later plays here just are not and not strong enough to kind of keep him on the board. You're going to watch the red 5 here come and clean up the Karis. And even if he plays the Tal's Assassin right now, it's not going to kill the red 5. So he elects to hold it. But he's just getting kept off the board here. And now there's going to be a 3-drop played to get a ping onto the Jedi in Hiding, and Tarkentown's going to finish him off and clear his board. So just a little more stability on the ground is what he would have wanted there, I think, if he was really thinking about the matchup and how he's going to need to play the game. Okay, so now we're going to go to our kind of second point here. that's tied really closely to mulligans, and that's resourcing. What should you resource? Resourcing is one of the things that makes Star Wars Unlimited a very difficult game to play, because resourcing seems simple, but it's one of your most important and difficult decisions. A card that you resourced 3 turns ago, might be the card that you should have kept in order to win a game or close out a game. So we've got a few principles to keep in mind. The first one is, don't default to always resourcing certain cards. I think when I was starting out in the game, it was always, I'm just going to put my highest cards down, whatever my opening hand is, because that's way farther in the game. I'm going to draw something else, and I was always looking for that turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, just kind of perfect curve. Now that we have smuggle and plot in the game, that's another option where anytime we see those cards, we're just like, oh, smuggle, plot, perfect. That's going to be my resource. But that might not always be your best play. So really think about, do I need those high cost cards for later? We mentioned Wrecker earlier. That's such an important card for Sabine. Maybe that's a card you keep from turn 1 and you just wait for it so that you can slam it and close out a game. Or a card like Crate Dragon, if you're in a control matchup, that might be the most important card in your deck, so you just want to hang on to it. So we're going to look at, actually we'll go through these and then we'll look at the clips, but other things to think about, what cards are better in the matchup. You might have a preference for like your kind of standard game plan that, oh yeah, usually I play this into this, but given your matchup, you might want to change that up. And then what cards are better for your game plan if you need to play against one deck differently than another. Maybe against one deck you want to be more aggressive, against another deck you want to be a little more control-y. That's going to change how you resource. And then lastly, how are you going to win the game, right? What's your winning line? What's your winning strategy? And make sure that you're keeping the cards that are going to enable that, not just cards that are, it's good to use your full resources every turn. You still want to, make sure you know what your win conditions are. So we're going to check out another clip. We are going to go back to this game that we just saw the opening of. And this time we're going to look at Ophir's hand, Wu's hand. And so he has here I just need to read off the screen. He's got an Ahsoka, a Cassian, a Han, a Hotshot, a Red 5, and a Sabine. So we look at this hand and think about, you can see he's made his decision already. 2 cards are down. What would you resource? If you need some more time, you can go ahead and pause. But when I looked at this hand, I was thinking, oh, perfect. He's got a Cassian, he's got a Hotshot. Both those are going into the row for sure, right? Or maybe it's going to be a Han and a Hotshot or something like that. And that's what he actually does. Is my quick look at the situation was, hey, 2 smuggle cards. That's exactly what you want. But he's looking at the situation and realizing that Talzin is another matchup that's going to fight for the board. She's got her -1/-1, and you might need bodies with a little bit higher health in order to stay on the board. So he's thinking, my turn 2 play might need to be this Cassian with 5 health so that I can, keep fighting for the board and stay on the board. So instead, he resources a Han, hangs onto the Cassian, and while he does play the Red 5 first, as you know from watching the clip before, he's going to play the Cassian the following turn in order to match 3 cost to 3 cost and get a ping. So that's kind of our first principle there. You don't necessarily resource all your smuggle cards if you don't need to. All right, we are gonna look at another clip here. This is from the Seattle event that happened recently, and we've got I believe this is Mickey D from Bothan Network on Padme Tarkentown. Maybe I'm wrong with that. And Philip from McClunky, but this is later in the event. It's round 5. I believe both these players are undefeated. And we have, Padme Tarkentown against Han 1 Green. So Padme has a hand of Warrior Clan Ordo, R2D2, the 2 cost that lets you dig for a card, Kira, Ahsoka, Anakin, and Nemec. Nemec, of course, being the new all-star from Secrets of Power. So what would you resource? If you need a little more time, go ahead and pause. We'll see here he makes a fairly quick choice to resource an Ahsoka. And then he's going to think about his second card. When I was looking at this hand, I was thinking, okay, one of the 4 drops probably goes down, and then one of the 3 2 drops. And you're going to play Nemec turn 1 because Nemec's the best card in the game. So either he's going to put the Ordo down or he's going to put the R2 down. He needs to disclose the red for Ordo, so he'll probably put the R2 down. That was my line of thinking. Maybe you were thinking something similar. And then as I watched the game, I discovered he put the Nemec down. The best card in your deck? That surprised me. So I had to stop. I had to think about why, right? Why would he put that down? There's got to be a reason. Maybe this is a matchup where Hanwen Green tends to open with Falcon and then maybe go into a resupply turn 2. It could be that he knows if he plays a Nemec, which is generally his best play, he's not going to get a chance to trigger the disclose. He's not going to get a chance to get a ping off with Palpatine. So based on the matchup, he changes up what he would resource and what he would play. He goes with the Clan Ordo Warrior, thinking that way he has a little more control over the ping. So when he attacks, he could potentially next turn, ping a Falcon if it was in space, and then target down and away. I believe there was something along those lines. Maybe it's something different than that, but there's certainly got to be a reason. I'm guessing it's matchup dependent. So sometimes you might end up resourcing the card that's normally your play, or resourcing your best card. All right, we have 2 more left here. This one we are going to look at a Cad Bane player. This is the Malmo Game Week from a while back. It's a big event, and this is, I believe, the start of day 2, but it's still round 8 of the main before the cut to top 16. But both these players are right on the edge of making the cut. And a little bit of backstory. So they're in game 3 here. They've had 2 very close games. One where Cad tried to race the Poe and ended up losing by a couple damage, and then another where he was playing more of a controlling role and managed to kind of take control of the game in the later stages with slamming a big Cad Bane to get a big capture off, and then taking over from there. Poe came close to killing him, but he pulled it out. So with that in mind, let's look at the hand. We've got Boba, No Good to Be Dead, Aura, McClunky, now there are 2 of them, and Bosk. What do you keep against this Poe player? If you need a little more time, go ahead and pause. We will watch here. When I looked at it, I thought, oh, well, you just won a game by playing the control, so surely you're going to do that again. You're going to keep an Aura, you're going to keep a McClunky, you're probably going to look to keep, a Bosk and a No Good to Me Dead, and put maybe a Boba or another 2 down, or keep the Boba. Instead, he resources the McClunky, something that I thought was just an absolute for sure keep for controlling the board. But what I don't understand is the nuances of the matchup, right? Which I'm sure he knows. So he knows that his best line, even though he won a game by control and lost a game by racing, his best line is still racing, especially with a now year two of them. So he's going to put an aggressive 2-drop down. He's not going to, you know, um, use the McClunky to pick his 2 play up. He wants to now there are 2 of them into a 5-drop and use the Underworld ping to go start killing his opponent's things with Turkentown. And here, even better than the Bosk, he got a Zuckuss. So this is about knowing the game plan, right? Knowing what cards you need to play in certain matchups. Well, McClunky is an amazing card. You're going to use it in a lot of matchups. Sometimes you need to alternate your path to victory. All right, and our last clip here. This is taking from the PQ in the UK, not the most recent one, the one before it. But there is, we have Palpatine Yellow versus Gar ECL. We are going into the 5 resource turn. You can kind of see there, Gar has a hand of a Maul, Vader, Apprentice of Twilight, Legacy of the Force One, and an Outer Rim Smugglers or Outer Rim Outlaws. And he's going to look at his row here, and he's probably looking for a Long Pike. There isn't one in there, but there is another Maul in there. If that's going to influence your decision here, what would you resource? If you want some more time, you can go and pause till you're ready. If you said that he resources the only card he can play this turn, you are a wiser player than me, because I would not have predicted that. I would have assumed that he would put down the Maul and have something to play this turn and then a Vader next turn to ECL. Instead, what he's going to do is he's going to put the Outer Rim Outlaws into his resources, and he's going to elect to play nothing on the 5 resource turn, which seems so wild to say, hey, this is the play that needed to be made, but sometimes that's true. So he knows that in this matchup, the longer the game goes, the better it's going to go for Palp. So he's got to be able to close. And he also knows that, Maul and Vader are 2 of his best cards for being able to close the game out. He's already got 1 Maul in his row. He does not want to resource the second one. So here he's saying, you know what? Even though it's going to set me behind to kind of take the turn off, I need to be able to just have tons of gas in my hand and go ECL Vader into Maul for Overwhelm to try and finish this off. He's going to end up, I think, getting another Maul off this Owen. And even though I believe Palp flips and takes one of the Mauls, he ends up using both of them to close the game out. So sometimes the best play is playing nothing at all and resourcing your only play for the turn. So those were some kind of strategies that you can use for your mulligans and resourcing. Some of our advanced skills. We'll have a couple more videos focusing on some other things that you can do, getting into some matchup related things, claiming and passing, and hopefully you can learn some things to become a better player. Until next time, thank you for stopping by.